Welcome back. In this video, we're going to discuss phishing. No, not that kind of phishing. We're going to discuss the kind of unwanted email that inundates all of our inboxes. We all have email these days, and we all get unwanted messages. Some of those messages are benign. They come from companies that we maybe do business with. We don't necessarily want them, but they don't hurt us any. Other messages can be quite dangerous. In this video, we'll discuss the different kinds of messages you get, what the bad actors intend to do with those messages, and how to protect ourselves from those bad actors. When evaluating unwanted email messages, they typically fall in one of 5 categories. Those categories of unwanted messages are spam, phishing, spear phishing, whaling, and smishing. Now that we have an understanding of what those categories are, we can start to talk about what the differences are between those kinds of messages. We can discuss the objectives of each message type. We can also discuss how to handle each type of message so that we don't get caught in one of these traps that the bad actors have set for us. The first category of unwanted mail that we're going to discuss is called spam. What is spam? Well, I'm glad you asked. What is spam? Usually spam is any unwanted benign electronic message that winds up in your inbox. We all get a lot of these. Typically, spam is used for marketing or promotional purposes. Often spam comes from legitimate companies, and you either knowingly or unknowingly subscribe to the service that's sending out these messages. The service, when they send out these messages, does have to provide an unsubscribe link somewhere in the message itself. As we said earlier, spam emails usually come from legitimate organizations. They usually don't come from phony companies. The other thing about spam messages is that they're typically not malicious. There's usually nothing bad about them. They're just annoying. Kind of like getting junk mail in your mailbox. Spam is the same as that. It's getting junk mail in your inbox. But the question now becomes, how did you get on the list in the first place? If you find yourself receiving a lot of spam messages, it's probably because you inadvertently or intentionally signed up for some sort of a subscription. The other way that you get onto mailing lists is by filling out online forms or signing up for various websites. Those tend to automatically add you to their mailing list. Another method is filling out raffle cards or giveaway forms. Typically, when they raffle things off or they give away things, they're collecting your information and adding you to their mailing list. Often, when you check out at the register, they ask for your email address. If you give them your email address, you've signed up to their subscription as well. Lastly, loyalty programs are often a way that companies collect personal information and email addresses so that they can add you to their company's mailing list. Now that you know that you're on somebody's mailing list, the next question is, how do you get yourself off of the list? Legitimate companies doing mass mailing services are required to include an unsubscribe link somewhere in their message. Sometimes they make that easy to find, like this one. All you have to do is click on the unsubscribe link, and then you're redirected to a website where you can remove yourself from their mailing list. Other places hide it in the middle of some text at the bottom of the message, making it hard to find, like these guys. The link is still there. This is a legitimate mass marketing email. They just hide it because they want to make it difficult for you to unsubscribe from their list. They don't want you removing yourself from their list. If you click on that link, it will take you to a website where you can remove yourself from their mailing list. Now, a word of caution here, The bad guys know that legitimate email has to have that link in the bottom of the message. So they've started using that as a way to validate people's email addresses. So only unsubscribe from companies that you know are legitimate. If it's any question, just delete the message or mark it as junk, and then your email provider typically will either move that message automatically to your junk folder or they will block it altogether. Now that we know what spam is, let's talk about the next category, which is phishing. Like real phishing, bad actors use these email messages to try and lure you or trick you into performing some action. That action could include opening an attached document to the email message or clicking on a link that they put into the message. Either case, the outcome is not all that great. So how do you identify phishing messages in your inbox? There are several factors that we can use to try and identify phishing messages. The first is if it's an unknown sender. Bad actors often use compromised email addresses to send out their phishing campaigns. Another factor is if the message contains vague information. The bad actor doesn't want to provide too much information. They want to stir your curiosity and try to lure you into opening attachments or clicking on links. To do that, they provide very little information. Oftentimes, these messages will have some sort of a sense of urgency. They'll use language in the message that makes you want to click on a link or open an attachment without really thinking about what you're doing. In other words, a sense of urgency inside of a message is not a good thing. An unexpected attachment to a message may indicate that that message is phishing. Likewise, watch out for links that don't match the target. If you think that the message is going to take you to your bank site, but you hover your pointer over the link and it says you're going somewhere else, that's definitely a phishing email. Lastly, watch out for misspellings in the document or bad grammar or poor punctuation. Often these are signs of phishing messages. I don't know why bad guys can't figure out how to spell or use grammar or they use poor punctuation, but they do, so watch out for that. That's a sure sign as well. Phishing messages are just a method for the bad actor to be able to deliver attachments and links to your mailbox. The goal is to have you open those attachments or click on those links, and in doing so, cause some bad action to happen. The bad actors use these things to try and deliver ransomware and other malware to your computer. This is not ideal. The best thing to do with this type of message is to simply delete it. Don't forward it to anybody else. Don't try to overanalyze it yourself. Just go ahead and delete it. Spear phishing is the next category of messages that we'll discuss. Similar to phishing, spear phishing bad actors use the messages to deliver content and try to trick you into taking some kind of action based on that content. The main difference between phishing and spear phishing is that in a spear phishing attack, the bad actor tends to use specific information that gives them more credibility when they send the messages out. The messages may contain things like personal information or details that the bad actor may have gathered from the dark web or just the internet in general. They may also craft messages to target specific systems. For instance, everybody has a Facebook account. A lot of people have LinkedIn accounts. So when they craft the messages, they target those specific systems and anybody that might be a user of those systems. Sometimes they get lists from compromised databases. We always hear about database leaks and companies that leak information. Sometimes that information gets sold on the dark web and bad actors can obtain that information. Sometimes bad actors may target specific banks and assume that you're a bank customer. Certain banks like Bank of America, Wells Fargo, they have lots of customers, and so sending out a message pretending to be that bank would probably hit a fair number of people that are actually customers. Company employees have always been a favorite target of bad actors that use spear phishing to try and attack those organizations. Part of the thing that enables this is the fact that the company's information is so readily available out on the internet, so the bad actor has lots of research available to them. Usually, when attacking an organization, one of the goals of the bad actor is to do what's called credential harvesting. In other words, they try to trick the employees into giving up their usernames and passwords. Once the bad actor has access to the systems and the information on those systems, they can then try to steal that information, or they can use that access to deploy ransomware or other malware that might be damaging to the organization. Regardless of why you're being targeted, these kinds of messages usually follow the same sort of format. Usually there's an embedded web link that they try to get you to click on. There's some sort of sense of urgency where if you don't click on that link, something bad is about to happen. Clicking on the links in the messages typically cause something bad to happen. It either takes you to a website that you don't want to go to, or it causes some kind of bad action to occur that you probably don't want happening either. One of the bad actions that could happen is that clicking on a link could trigger bad software or malicious software like spyware, keyloggers, or ransomware to be downloaded and installed on your computer. None of that is good stuff. The other option is that you get taken to a website that looks like a legitimate website that you might log on to, and the bad actor is trying to use that in order to steal your credentials. They want your username, they want your password, and once they have that information, they can then get into your account and use it to perpetrate other fraud. To evaluate whether a link is malicious or not, one technique you can use is called hovering. Basically, you take your pointer and you put it over the link, and then it will show you the address or URL of where that link goes to, or the server that that link points to. In reviewing that link, hopefully you can determine whether it goes where you want it to, or if it goes to a bad site or somewhere unexpected. If it goes to somewhere unexpected, don't mess with it, just delete that message and move on. Some phones will allow you to preview a link now. They didn't used to, but some of them do now. If you have that opportunity, then definitely preview the link before you execute it. If your phone doesn't support that, then wait to take action on any urgent messages until you have an opportunity to review that message on your computer and verify whether that link is valid or not. Again, if that link turns out to be malicious or not valid, or you're not sure about it, delete it. You can always go to your bank directly and log in and take whatever action needs to be done there. Thus far, we've talked about spam, phishing, and spear phishing. The next thing we're going to talk about is something called whaling. Whaling is a highly targeted version of spear phishing. In whaling, the bad actor targets business owners, upper management, and executives of organizations. The reason why a bad actor targets these specific individuals is because they typically have access to information that the rest of the employees probably don't. They also probably have access to information about the company and specific about the company's plans, the company's growth, any information that may be confidential. Another reason why bad actors may target business owners and corporate executives is for financial purposes. Typically, these people have access to the accounts of the company, and if the bad actor can trick them into giving up their credentials, now the bad actor has access to those resources. Dealing with these kinds of messages is similar to dealing with phishing or spear phishing messages. The same principles apply here. If you receive an attachment that you're not expecting, don't open it unless you're sure what that attachment is. If there's a link in the message that they're trying to entice you into clicking on, skip it. Don't click on links embedded in messages. The best thing to do in this instance is, if it seems somewhat fishy, delete the message and move on. If it's a message that you feel compelled to follow up on, do it outside of that message itself. In other words, if the message says it came from Bob, call Bob on the phone or send a separate email to Bob to verify that you actually received that message from him. If the message is trying to prompt you into taking some kind of action with your bank, do that outside of the message as well. Use your computer's web browser and go directly to the website yourself, or use the app on your phone if you have a phone app that ties to your bank account. But don't click on any links in the message. Chances are those links go to an intermediary where they're trying to steal your credentials. The last category that we're going to cover is called smishing. That's phishing with an SH. The difference between phishing and smishing is that smishing occurs on your cell phone through text messages. All the other ones that we've talked about so far happen in your inbox or through email. Similar to phishing, in smishing, the bad actor sends a message to your cell phone. That message is specially crafted to try and create a sense of urgency. It might say something like your account has been locked out, or a charge has been put on your credit card and you need to tap on this link in the message to follow up on it immediately. And just like the phishing messages that we talked about earlier, the goal of the bad actor is to have you click on the link and do something bad. It could either download and install software to your phone, or it might take you to a website where they try to collect your credentials so that later on they can break into your accounts. The best way to deal with these text messages is to just delete them. Don't even tap on the link. That can only lead to bad stuff happening. If you need to do banking or verify some transaction, use your web browser on your computer or the specific app on your phone for whatever transaction you need to verify. Chances are you'll log into that site and find out that whatever you were being alerted to in the text message really didn't happen. I hope by now you recognize that there are recurring themes in how to deal with these various types of messages. They might be spam, or they might be phishing, or they might be spear phishing, or they could even be smishing. In all cases, though, take your time to review the messages. Don't take immediate action if the message is trying to get you to quickly open an attachment or click on a link. Make sure the message that you received is legitimate before you take any action on that message. Another common theme throughout all of these message types is to not open any attachments. Make sure you take time to verify that the attachment that you're about to open is actually one that you expected to receive and that it's from the person that you expected to receive it from. If the attachment isn't from someone that you expected to get a document from, or the attachment doesn't seem right, like the format is wrong, it says it's an Excel sheet when you're expecting a Word document, then don't open it. Delete that message, or contact the sender and verify that that's what they really sent you. The next common theme is, unless you are absolutely positive about whom the email came from, do not click on any web links that might be in the message itself. Bad actors quite often use these links to either install and download software that can damage your computer, or they can take you to websites where they attempt to steal your credentials. Lastly, when doing any kind of financial transactions, it's best not to use the links that show up inside of messages. Use your web browser or apps on your phone to go directly to the site that you want to make those transactions with. That way, if there's any funny business going on in the message at all, you've bypassed it and you've safeguarded yourself from being attacked. Now, don't get me wrong. Electronic mail is a wonderful communications tool. In fact, it's required for business operations and personal use. However, the blocking and filtering technologies that are in place will not catch everything. In other words, you need to be vigilant and protect yourself from these bad messages just as much as the technology is trying to protect you from these messages. Until we meet again, be safe out there.